So if you get pregnant unexpectedly and you're thinking about your options, you can place your child for adoption. And it's not just the typical straightforward way that you might be thinking in your mind. There are various ways you could go about doing this. With us to discuss those options is Nicole Witt. She's the executive director of the Adoption Consultancy. Hi, Nicole.
Hi, Kim. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thank you for being on and explaining this to us. So there are various types of adoption. I think most of us, when we think of it, we think of you have the baby, you hold the baby for an hour, and then they whisk the child away and you never see him again.
Right. Yeah, these days, that's sort of the adoption of a generation ago. Mm-hmm. And in fact, young women who are considering placing their child for adoption, that's what they might hear about, from their parents or their parents' friends or things like that, and think that it's the same way today. But those adoptions are really quite rare today. Usually there's some level of openness, whether it be a semi-open or a fully open adoption.
Mm-hmm. And why have people opted to go in this direction, having a more open adoption than before? It seems like it'd be really difficult. Gosh, it just seems like placing your child up for adoption is difficult regardless. But it seems like it would be difficult seeing the child, and it almost is like better to be out of sight, out of mind so that you can cope.
Well, I think a lot of the change has actually been driven by the birth moms themselves, that it's something that they've wanted. And I mean, not to put words in their mouth, and I know you're speaking to a birth mom shortly who can speak to it, but, my understanding is that for them, when they see the pictures, when they get the letters, they get the updates on how the child is doing, it really communicates to them that, they made the right decision, they did the right thing. It gives them peace of mind that the child is thriving and doing well, and that they're a good person, because during the process, they're getting so judged by so many people around them when they're really making, the most selfless decision that one could possibly make. So it's a really good validation for them that they did, such an incredible thing.
It seems like this would also be difficult for the adoptive parents. Having the birth parent still in the picture might make the adoptive mother, for instance, feel like there's some confusion there, or maybe she's having to share the role. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And almost every adoptive parent that I work with has a fear of that at the beginning of the process. And I tell them at the beginning that I know they're not going to believe me at that time, but that their perspective on it will change during time, because once they have adopted that child and they are parenting that child and they gain confidence in their role as the mom and they know that they are the mom, they just feel such a sense of appreciation for the birth mom, that they want to, share with her how the child is doing and that sort of thing, as long as everybody's, respecting the boundaries, right? That's really the important thing. But it's also shown to be so helpful for the children, which is another reason I think adoption has gone this way, and that the adoptive parents are able to gain a comfort level with it, because it's really proven to help them with self-esteem and identity issues and things like that.
It seems like it would be so difficult for the birth mother for a woman to make the choice to put her child up for adoption, to place her child up for adoption. It seems like that would be a very difficult choice because, as your belly is growing and people are all around you saying, oh, wow, congratulations, you're pregnant. This is so wonderful. What are you naming them? Is it a boy or a girl? There's all these questions, and everyone else is so excited for you to have this child, yet you've made a very difficult decision to place your child up for adoption. I think a lot of women choose the alternative of termination because they don't really want to feel all of that, and they don't want to have to explain to everybody that they're placing their child up for adoption.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right about that. In some of the cases, it would definitely be that way, and I think it does drive them to alternate decisions. In a lot of other cases, when the birth mother is clearly not in a position to parent the child, whether she's young or whether she's already a single mom, and she can barely afford to provide for those children, she's actually not getting that positive reinforcement, about congratulations and how wonderful it is.
Oh, I see. People are like, I can't believe you're having another child.
What's that?
People say, oh, I can't believe you're having a child.
Exactly. She gets a lot of negative commentary, even though she's, chosen to do such a wonderful and positive thing for another family.
Now, I have a cousin who placed her child up for adoption many years ago, and she was 16, 17 when she got pregnant. And she placed the child up for adoption. She was sent somewhere. They kind of sent her off to a school for pregnant girls, and she had the baby and placed the child up for adoption, came back thin and pre-pregnancy body, and no one was any the wiser. It was like totally hush-hush.
Yep, yeah, and that is the way that it used to be. But again, there's so much more openness now, which provides so many benefits to everybody involved. And for instance, with the birth mom, she gets to select the parents, right? Mm-hmm. It used to be that, like you said, the baby was whisked away. You had no idea what happened. I mean, can you imagine having no idea who's raising your child or how
that would drive me crazy. Every day it would drive me crazy.
Yeah, but these days they get to actually select the parents. They know that those parents have gone through vigorous background checks. Mm-hmm. And they get to get those pictures and letters and updates and know that the child is thriving.
Mm-hmm. I lived with a girl a couple of years ago who had placed her child up for adoption, and it was a very open adoption. And she got to see her son, I guess. She saw him probably once a month. She'd go visit for a couple of hours, and was able to watch him grow and whatnot. And it worked out to be a really great arrangement for her and for the mom. And, I actually had a conversation with the adoptive mother, and she said, it's just more people who love the child.
Right. And the people who embrace fully open adoption, that is their mindset, that extent of it with in-person visits is actually extremely rare. Okay. And that's something that people hear about because it's so unusual. And again, adoptive parents who are just starting the process are very fearful that that's the extent that they're going to have to be comfortable with. But that's actually pretty rare. It's usually more along the lines of, sending those letters and pictures to the agency, and then they forward them on to the birth mom, or maybe once in a while having a phone call or things like that. But in-person visitation after the birth is very much the extreme of open adoption.
Yeah, I have another friend whose older sister placed her child up for adoption, and that's how her open adoption was. She just received updates like twice a year.
Right, and that's much more typical.
Okay. Yeah, that way, as the birth mother, you feel like you're connected. You know what's going on with the child, and you realize you've done a really great thing.
Exactly. And the birth mother gets to choose. If she really wants a fully open adoption where she has visitation and so on, she needs to let the agency know that up front so that they only match her with adoptive parents who are comfortable with that. Oh. So she gets to make the choice in terms of what level of ongoing contact she wants, what form that's going to take. Is it going to be letters, phone calls, emails, visits? Mm-hmm. And they're going to match her with the right family who's got the same philosophy on it that she does.
That might be a really great thing for maybe a young woman who's pregnant and knows that she's not in a position to raise a child, but she doesn't really want to, never see the child again. And she wants to have the child somewhat a part of her life, then maybe the fully open adoption would be a really good choice for her.
Yeah, and it's just, one of the things that's important and that they'll be counseled and make sure that they're comfortable with is that they do understand that, it's not co-parenting in any way.
Right.
In those fully open adoptions, they sort of take on the role like
You're
a very special aunt or something like that.
Yeah, and that's exactly my roommate. That's exactly how they presented her to the child, that she was a special aunt.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Lacey, Nicole, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks so much for having me, Kim.
Nicole Witt, she's the executive director of the Adoption Consultancy. Find out more information by going to the website adoptanewlife.com. Coming up next, we will be talking to Lacey. She is a woman who did place her child up for adoption. She'll share her experience next. This is Your Time with Kim Iverson.